Okay, welcome everybody. I'm super excited that you are here tonight. We're going to do College Without the Chaos. So, three steps that you can use to simplify admissions and maximize financial aid. As we are waiting for people to continue to trickle in, I am curious, put in the chat for me, where are you guys from? Like, what is your graduation year of your student? What high school are you at? I'm in Washington State. If you're not, I'm curious where you are. So feel free to drop that in. We can see where everybody is joining us tonight. Lovely. Washington, 2029, seniors, 27, 26. Gig Harbor, Garfield. Love it. All my Seattle peeps. Running Start, Everett. We got a good spread. 27, 29. And what I love about tonight is we are going to get to talk about the whole spectrum. Usually we focus more on juniors and seniors, but we're also going to emphasize how we can get started in this process as freshmen and sophomores and really maximize our opportunities. So my goal for us today is to take you feeling from anxious and unsure about this process to starting to feel more empowered because you have a step-by-step plan that's going to work for you based on your grade level and make things way more achievable. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I appreciate that. So, what you're going to walk away knowing how to do. We have number one, where we're going to shift from that confusion to having more clarity and a roadmap in regards to this process. Two, we like to use strategic planning in reducing our costs. And I tend to hear this from people like Crystal. I don't qualify for financial aid. How am I supposed to reduce my cost? There are opportunities and ways for us to do this, so we're going to talk more about it. And then three, mapping your next steps by grade level so that nothing gets missed. Now, you are in the right place if you feel overwhelmed by college planning and you don't know where to begin. You want your teen to go to a great school, but you don't want to drown in debt, them or you, by the time it is done. You would like to have some expert guidance, but you maybe can't or don't want to spend $10,000 or more on a private coach. And you would love to have some clarity instead of feeling like the world of chaos. So, this class is for the families that are proactive and you're worried about this, and we want to take some action steps and really know that we're in the right place. So, hi, by the way, I'm Crystal. I actually didn't grow up thinking that college was a given. So, I was a first generation low income rural student. So, I grew up in a one stoplight town. I went back just this a couple weekends ago. It's kind of aging to say I had my 20-year high school reunion. Um, and it was very interesting to get to have that experience and now going back where it's still a one stoplight town, but they have grown to the point where they have a Starbucks and a grocery outlet and a hospital of all things. So it's kind of crazy. But I was that kid that then I didn't know what I was doing, right? I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have parents that attended college, so they didn't even have a clue about what was going on. So I always just like to say I had grit, and then I had a best friend who was like, "Hey, we're gonna do this thing called Running Start." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And that's what we did. So, when I started doing Running Start, for most of you, you may more know if you're in Washington, that is where we're earning college level credits while we're in high school. And it seemed like a great idea at the time because I had no idea what I was doing. And hey, if I got to save on college costs, by all means, I'm going to do so. And so what I did was then I transferred from the community college to 4 year. I went to Western Washington, and I studied finance, but I did everything the hard way. I will often share with clients that story when they're thinking about doing Running Start. Um, it is a great program, don't get me wrong. It's just understanding like the logistics, especially when we do something specialized. So I decided that I wanted to study business. And in doing that, I did 2 years in my Running Start in focused on business. So I didn't have to do English and history and math and science and all of that other stuff like my friends were doing. I took the things that I was most interested in. But nobody told me that then when I got to Western, it was going to waive 2 years of general education credit. So I didn't have to do the English, the history, and math, but I was going into a business degree. So guess what I got to take all over again? All of those business classes that I just finished and got A's in, I got the privilege of retaking at Western without an option to opt out or choosing to take alternative courses in order to learn something different than what I had already just done. Yet again, the hard way. So that was, not something, fun conversation to get to have with people, especially when you're thinking about a specialty path of that nature. But I was also a zero SAI. It was EFC back in the day. But at that point, right, like we had no idea what that meant. It was just my mom helped me fill out financial aid forms. Thankfully, I did not have to touch that side of the process, but we didn't know what any of it meant. It just came back and it said, here you go. So here's your student loan from Western, and here's your student loan from the government, and here's our grant to cover the rest. So even being a zero SAI student, doing 2 years of running start, I still came out with debt from that conversation. And that's where, right, when we need it and we're a family in that position, we want to make sure that we understand what that means for us. So SAI is Student Aid Index. So it is when you fill out your financial aid form, it's going to give you a number that's going to tell you how much you can afford to pay for school in the eyes of either the university, the federal government, or state in regards to qualifying for grants and scholarships. So it's something that teaches us where we have an opportunity to get money from certain kinds of schools. And so that number is important in us understanding our financial position. And we'll talk more about this, but it's where if, like I still had to pay for school on credit cards and student loans and working. And nowadays it is way more expensive than when you went to school and when I went to school. And so understanding that affordability component is really important. And that's why I do enjoy what I get to do and helping families do it better so that there's more clarity, more confidence, and more of a plan in terms of how to get this done. So, can you imagine then what it would feel like if you had a student who was walking onto campus for a college tour asking questions and they felt confident about asking those and things that maybe you didn't even think to ask as a parent? Or knowing exactly what schools are a fit for your student based off of your budget as well as their academics. And that's because you had a strategy and not just hope in regards to the process and feeling calm and then in control during admission season because there's a lot of scrambling that happens come senior year when I meet with families when we're not following a process. And then never second guessing if you're doing enough, whether you're missing a deadline or leaving money on the table. And I will come back, I will make sure that I come back to some questions. I see that you guys are putting in there maybe more some inquiry stuff, and I am happy to come back to that here soon. But college, guess what? Does not have to be a chaotic process. It really does just need a plan and a path and someone to help you with all of that. So, we're going to walk through those 3 steps to take the chaos out of college planning, and some of this then may answer some questions as well. So, step 1, we talk about getting clear on the big picture. So, this is really understanding how college and admissions and financial aid really work and why the system is built to overwhelm families. And then understanding that there is a timeline based on your student's grade level in order to set you up for success in this process. I really do think of college as a business, and you will see why here shortly. But we talk about this because when we don't have clarity, we will miss deadlines. We will overlook different opportunities. We can make mistakes. We are human. And so the earlier that we start on this path, often the easier the process just overall is. So this is just getting an idea. You're going to see the one on the left is going to be where we start our freshman and sophomore year, and on the right is junior and senior year, and it gets pretty meaty. And this is just a snapshot so that you can see visually, these are the calls that we are having with parents and students and meeting them where you're at in the process. So, as a freshman, that is where we're starting to build that awareness and discovering who they are, exploring the different career paths and options. And then, of course, also starting to understand financial aid, where we have opportunities for qualifying for either need or merit-based aid based on our circumstance. And then sophomore year, we start to get a little bit more clarity. Usually kids start to want to dive a little bit deeper into their areas of interest, and start really shaping that list of schools that they're going to be looking at, which then naturally gives us an opportunity to look more at affordability and what that means at the schools on our list. And then when we get into junior and senior year, we have calls where we are diving into each aspect of the process as it is now actively time to deal with it. So, standardized testing, and we have specialists coming in from test prep companies talking about what's going on currently in the testing landscape and how best to set you up for success. Buyers and sellers, which is oddly enough, college is a business. Colleges are buying students. How do we understand and recognize who that is and why that works for us and how to strategize? College visits and demonstrating interest is a great way to be able to set ourselves apart. So we also have experts coming in and talking about unique ways that we can demonstrate interest to schools that we may not have thought about. Then we're talking about college rankings, diving deeper into what you really should be looking at when thinking about a college and or those types of statistics, understanding what is backing those, and really how best to judge and look at your schools. Enrollment management, which we're going to talk about here more in a minute too, is really yet again talking about where we're marrying admissions with financial aid in this process. And it's a very critical back end component of how all of these colleges and universities run. And then we're getting into prep for application time. So, letters of recommendation, understanding our college list, and really where we're at within the affordability component. You're getting access to these platforms that we're using to look at all of these different things so you are set up for success. And then it's essays and understanding the whole application process where we are going to be doing boot camps working live on applications. And then we've got the like meatiest of it all is talking about financial aid forms. So that is diving into what we call financial aid forms 101, everything you need to know and how to do and get submitted, and then best strategize as well for in the springtime when we're coming back around for award offers, understanding where we have grounds to appeal those award offers. And then we're starting to make our final decisions. So making sure we're doing the best that we can. And then we start to fill out legal forms as our kids are going off. And then if we do need to borrow, we are talking about within the current landscape again, like how do we know what we need to borrow, where we can borrow from, and what those opportunities look like. And then we're just celebrating with you as you're shipping your kid off. Crazy enough, it will come really fast. Which this is like really an in-depth look at everything. I like a visual picture as well. I think that this is really helpful in terms of a key timeline. Some of you guys may have seen this before, but this kind of puts all of the other pieces around it, right? We're checklisting, like we are saying this is our things that we need to get done and by when. And the calls that we do are matching up with a to-do for a student or a parent in terms of a part of the process that they need to get done in a fashion that then is going to be less stressful because you are doing it in advance of when it needs to happen. So, step two, we talk about build a best fit college list. So, here's when we really want to identify the schools that are a good academic, social, and financial fit. I call them the three pillars in my world. You think of it like a stool, right? Like without one, it's going to fall. So, everything, when you think about it from that component, will set you up for success in terms of this process. And people will fall into that pit of thinking rankings are going to be what I need to use to judge a school or make a decision about what is a right fit academically, or a dream school, which, right, is all of what we call the highly rejectables, where people just feel like they need to. I actually had a fun conversation with a mom earlier today. She was like, um, yeah, I don't know. Does this happen a lot? Like, he's going into senior year, and she's just like, he had a really elite institution on his list, like hard to get into. I should say, not necessarily elite, but like, yet again, like 20% acceptance rate or lower is what we start to categorize as a super reach in terms of getting in, because it's a numbers game at that point in time. And she goes, well, I think that he really just wants, like, he went and visited and he really didn't like it, like the culture and the fit and all of the things. And so then he decides that he wants to really go for the military academy because that's really hard to get into. She goes, I don't think he really wants to go. And I've been talking to people that have done it, and they're like, "Are you sure? I can't really see him really choosing to do that." And she's like, it really just comes down to the fact that he wants to say that he got into a hard school, or he really wants to apply to one of those challenging schools. And it's, I told her, I said, you know what, at this point in time, he can totally, like, if he's not interested in that more challenging to get into school, like, fine, don't apply to it. Let's pick some others, like, that he can feel like, they are really more competitive. But the type of school that he was looking at, like, naturally, I was like, those kinds of schools are like loving and caring and want you to come. They're not the highly rejectables. And so it's really, she was like, are there other options to be able to add to the list? And I'm like, well, we have some other over here, but like, there isn't anybody in that category of kind of school you want that's really gonna do that other than the one you already have. But these ones are really great options. But, so it's just fascinating how sometimes we get into that mindset where we're like, no, it is about the rankings, or kids are like, it has to be a hard to get into school, or it's not worth it. And we love talking about that with teaching you how you can look outside of that box to make sure that you understand what really is an actual good fit for you academically and socially. And then how much is that school going to cost me? And then is that worth it? Because I've had many conversations with parents where then I will say, so is it worth $80,000 a year? And they're like, well, no, but I just want to see, like, I just want to throw my hat in the ring and see if I can get in. I was like, as long as everybody is clear, right, that if we get in, we're probably not going to go spend that. Right, like, we have to have some of those authentic conversations, and really starting to get clear about our priorities as a family. So we say that building out a smart college list is not just about where your student can get in, but understanding where they have that ability to thrive and then doesn't drain our savings account. And I will say that I often, even when I work with high net worth families, just because you can pay does not mean that you are willing to pay. And we all like to get a deal. So, yet again, understanding where we have opportunity to do that and where we don't, to make college more affordable for us, for whatever that means. Now, thinking about this from then, when we talk about those three pillars, we look at what are those attributes of students. So SAT and ACT score, GPA, rigor of schedule, right? Like, that's the academic side of stuff. And every college has a different expectation for their incoming freshman class on what it is that they are looking for. And so when we take that, we go, okay, there's the academic piece, and then there's those things, the differentiators, right? Like the extracurricular activities, whether they are demonstrating interest, their essays, especially their YS essay, so that they are starting to get clearer about, like, then this is them. Now, how do we match that with what they're looking for in a school? And what is that school looking for in a student? So that then you're starting to marry those two things together. But at the same time, you are understanding college is business. Okay. It is a very it's a nonprofit, but it runs as a business. So you're going to see that I have that thing up here called enrollment management. And this is where what they're doing is they're saying, here is admissions and here is financial aid. And it's not just one or the other. They are the hat that lives above everything, is this world of enrollment management, because their job is to say, what is the best incoming freshman class that I want for my school? And how much money do I have to give them to convince them to come? So, yet again, if you think about that from a business mindset of a college, right, they're just trying to be good stewards of their money and decide based on their institutional priorities, who do they want on campus and how much do they have to give you in order to get you to come. So it logically makes sense. And enrollment yield is the how many students then are they getting to fill butts in seats. So, this is a very interesting conversation, especially as we are walking into what we call the demographic cliff. Um, we dive deeper into this in concierge calls, but it is really starting to get into why, like colleges, some have to give more money and some don't give any at all. Right? And when they have to compete for students, because they have to and they're not one of the name brand institutions, then they're going to often give more scholarships to students in order to get them to come. So the examples that I like to use here is like if you think about, elite name brand schools, everybody knows them, right? For football or research or some other thing in the news, right? And those are the ones that when they don't have to work hard to get kids, we don't see discounts from them unless it is for D1 athletics or some other, master's degree research, whatever, right? Like they don't have to, except for whatever their priority is. And those tend to be very limited. Whereas at every other institution, over 2,000 other schools in the country, right? They are all competing against each other for students, and they're trying to build that incoming freshman class with the type of academics or extracurriculars or diversity or whatever it is that they want on their campus. And so if they are working harder to get kids and they have a lower enrollment yield, which means they have to send out more award offers than a typical school in order to get butts in seats, that's because then they're going to lead with, oh, by the way, here's the honorary medal scholarship award, and it's $27,000 a year to come to my school instead of 64, right? Like they're going to lead with, I want you. Here's some scholarship, right? It makes us feel good in the grand scheme of things. And so we always say our goal is to look at building out a college list, yet again, where I said, not just where, um, like that it's the hardest school to get into, but it's the where your kid is wanted and where then that college is incentivized to give them a scholarship and a discount. So I like to use a rule of thumb here, which is if my student is in the top 10 to 25% of the incoming freshman class, that is where we have an opportunity, first off, to set ourselves up to maximize that scholarship potential. But you got to keep in mind, if I am a flagship state school or I am an elite institution in Ivy or a baby Ivy, the rules are different. You can be that strong academic student, but there are certain types of schools that don't have to pay. Okay. And that's where we have to start to understand our process, our student, and where we can be maximizing looking at those opportunities. So enrollment yield is published information. It's just that you have to work harder for it. And one of our platforms that automatically we pull in that data, but what the statistics that you're looking for is then how many letters do they have to send out? So how many offers of acceptance are they sending versus the how many are actually enrolling in the institution? So they are, if you want to get really data-y, it's in their college data set is where like the official information is that colleges are reporting. We just essentially subscribe to a platform that feeds that to us. So then we can see like, well, what is their enrollment yield at that institution to be able to have a clearer idea of it. Okay. So step three, we want to maximize our aid and we want to make a plan. Okay. So we're going to learn strategies to lower the cost, even if we don't qualify for need-based aid. We're going to understand the FAFSA, which is our primary financial aid form, the CSS profile, which is our secondary financial aid form. There's a couple hundred schools in the United States that use that. And that's because they're going to start using that to determine their own need-based aid because they like that one better than the FAFSA. And the reason why is because they get to add their own questions to it. Okay. That form is hosted by College Board for the schools that are on that. And then understanding the merit aid so that you can plan this game with confidence. So, because when we start to think about the strategy side of everything, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, sometimes we will leave that money on the table and we're not, and when we choose to not be proactive, we will. I have talked to many a stressed out senior parent about just feeling like they were guessing and last minute trying to figure out how to do the FAFSA or did they qualify or my I'm saying this sarcastically. My favorite thing that I will hear from people, well, Crystal, I just won't qualify for aid, so why would I even bother to fill out the FAFSA? Okay. And we could go on many tangents about that. My biggest rule of thumb when it comes to financial aid forms is that you always fill them out because you don't want to leave money on the table, especially. So when I have, I mean, obviously, if we financially need it, no brainer, we need to fill out the FAFSA. But when I even have middle income to high income families, what often they don't realize is that colleges will tie merit scholarships to filling out the FAFSA. Weird, I know, but it happens. If we have a life event and we haven't filled out those financial aid forms, some schools are mean and then they won't let us fill them out if we don't fill it out the first year. So we call it an insurance policy. You just do it in case you need it. And then when you are thinking about it from a like I'm going to call it random scholarship perspective, the institutions will give it like a $2,000 you filled out the FAFSA scholarship. Like just because they want it, they are giving an incentive for you to fill it out. Okay. And I will say this also goes both ways because if you say academically, you're like, maybe we're on the cusp, or it's a school that is need aware, which means that they're going to look at our financial picture for the sake of an admissions consideration. And they're really hard to get into school, and you have the ability to pay, and you're like, but I have the ability to pay. I don't want to fill out the financial aid forms. There are at times at those need aware institutions that you want to prove you can and are willing to pay, right? So, from a college's perspective, they want to know. Okay, great. We've got a full pay candidate on board. Great, check box. Okay. So from an institution, yet again, college is a business, they can only give so much scholarship. They're allocating dollars. And at an elite institution, if we want to sugarcoat our ability and we know and we are okay paying that 60 to 80,000 or $100,000 list price at some of those institutions, fill out the darn financial aid forms, right? Like don't give them a reason not to give you money. And on the other side, use it as a leverage if you need it for that kind of institution to let them know you have the ability to pay. Okay. So, yet again, we're thinking strategy wise of how this works. And yes, the FAFSA, we fill out financial aid forms every year. So when you think about your student's graduation year, you're going to be looking at, so 2026 grads have a 2024 baseline year. So that means that you are going to be using 2024 taxes, and then you're going to be using assets as a snapshot in time when you file financial aid forms, which for seniors is going to be in October. So October of senior year, you fill those forms out. 2024 taxes snapshot at that point in time of assets for both parents and students is what's hitting those financial aid forms. And then you are doing that every single year your kid is in school, rinse and repeat. So financial positioning, I always like to highlight this here just because there is money out there. And people will be um, just not looking in the right places. And so we will like there, these are kind of our key points. Financial aid forms not getting filled out correctly. We see that happen every single year. Understanding that there are rules and strategy to this process. I really compare this to like accountants, because their job is to say, you know what, I've been given these rules by the federal government, and this is how you can use tax strategy to reduce your tax liability, right? Like people in the college planning world, or at least the people in my world that work with me, our job is to say, well, what is the financial aid strategy that we can use? We've been given rules by the federal government that keep changing all the time. And so, just like tax strategy, right? Like there's always new things that we get to play with based on what's happening. And so then we go with, okay, so here's the strategy we can use based on this situation to reduce down our college liability, right? So this is kind of that same process, understanding that strategy to be able to maximize those opportunities. And people will often look in, I'm going to say, the wrong, I shouldn't say the wrong places for money, but like we like to prioritize looking at the colleges first and foremost for the sake of what we like for money that they have to give, right? And then secondary, we want to look at scholarships, outside scholarship opportunities, as long as it does not impact any aid that we would be getting from an institution. So that is also super important. And then yet again, just waiting until senior year is so stressful that it is not fun for anybody. But when we talk about what financial aid is based on, so you better understand what's going into the financial aid forms as well, too, is so we think about it from actually three different categories. So you're going to see enrollment management came back into play. We talk about it in admissions, how it impacts there, but we also talk about how it impacts for the sake of financial aid. So need-based aid is based on our income and our assets. Merit-based aid is about all the shiny, pretty things that make up our kid. And a lot of institutions are going to have combinations of grades versus GPA, and being able to determine, like, sometimes for them, it's more like leadership, right? So it varies based on the school and those opportunities. But then enrollment management comes back in because, yet again, it's the hat, right? It marries admissions with financial aid. So their job is to say, right, like, what do I need to give to convince these people to come? So yet again, just remember everything is married together in this process. So when we talk more about financial aid strategy, we like to recognize that there are different types of assets on financial aid forms. Some are reportable, some are not. 529 plans are reportable. Retirement is not reportable. Depending on who owns different assets will depend on how and when or if that shows up on financial aid. And then different assets like businesses, homes, vacation properties, things are in flux right now, right? Like the federal government changed the FAFSA a couple years ago, so some of our strategies changed. But now, again, for this next year, things are changing, and what they're updating actually then reflects some positive things back again for farm and business owners. And so this is where, yet again, because these things are always fluid, we like to look at like what is that big picture in terms of our process? What are the tax and financial aid ramifications for any of the decisions that we are making? So really just having more of that holistic plan about what we want to do and how best we can maximize money on the front end from the schools, but then also save and pay for college in a way that I always say lovingly and jokingly is the makes us not want to cry about it by the time we're done. Okay. So where we're going here is this is where we're looking at building the momentum, right? Like everything's going to lead us towards like clarity, confident, like actually getting real results in this. And so in a few months, right, like you could be touring those best fit schools. You could be clear on scholarships and aid, and you could be supporting your student with confidence in this. So why in the world did you sign up for this class? Okay. Typically, it's because we want to know if there is a way that we can get expert level guidance without having to spend $10,000 or more for a college coach. And we're wondering if it is starting it early is actually going to make a difference or even save us any money in the process. And then we feel like maybe we might already be behind. I hear that from seniors a lot, and they want to know if then there's still time to catch up. And the answer to all of those is yes, yes, and yes. Okay. And I'm going to show you how we make that possible without burning you out or blowing up your budget. So at this point, we look at it as having two different options, and the choice is yours. So we can stay stuck or we get to move forward with a system that works for us. So when we stay stuck, we keep guessing. We live in that world of stress, missed deadlines, and confusion. Option two, we use this process called the college game plan, and that's where we have a personalized timeline, financial aid strategy, and then expert support every step of the way. So the program that I created so that you don't have to navigate this alone is called Tribe, and it features the college game plan process. So this is where we like to take you from going overwhelmed to feeling that clear, confident, and in control self, and having that support as we go through. Just as a cute little side note, this was my daughter's. Michaela is just, I dropped her off for the first day of third grade today. And this was her first round of college tours when she was 4. I bribed her, you can see it right there, with Squishmallows. So for those of you that have younger that are going on tours, but I just, she did a rock star job. And now I'm trying to convince her, like, honey, we can go on vacation and do college tours at the same time. But this was her first round of fabulousness. So how does this work? So this is not a one size fit all. This is where we get to customize and get clear support. So we do a step-by-step timeline personalized to your student so that you know what you need to do, when you need to do it, so that you're not missing an opportunity or a deadline that could impact admissions or aid. And then financial aid and scholarship clarity so that you know exactly how the system works, where your family fits within that system, and then how you can unlock the opportunities for merit aid and scholarships, even if you don't qualify for need-based help. And then getting expert coaching and that real peace of mind. So you get the direct access to experience guidance every month. So you can make confident decisions without the stress, guesswork, or constant Googling. Now we use AI, but still, you get my gist. So how we do this, a clear breakdown like freshman year, we're building that self-awareness. We're doing career search, discovery tools. We're starting to really explore what those colleges are and what matters to us in a good fit. We're understanding those basics of college costs and financial aid, and we're learning how those early choices that we're making can shape those future opportunities. So freshman we've got sophomore year where we start really identifying the colleges where that admissions affordability and then the graduation success is going to align. We deepen that career clarity with assessments like the Sparketype. And we really start to learn those scholarship strategies, even for families that don't qualify for need-based aid. Okay, we're looking at the whole spectrum. And then we're laying that groundwork so that we are having a balanced, best fit college list by the time we are done. So junior year, we are building that strategic college list. So yet again, going back to the good academic, social, and financial fit. We're making sure that we strengthen our student profile through standardized testing, extracurriculars, and college visits, which I think I saw somebody ask, like, so what is that value of really getting on campus at a college? And the answer is, I think that this was really great because I had this conversation with a parent just recently where she was like, I'm getting my kid on campus for a big school, a small school, a kind of more city school, suburban, right? Like just what's in their area. And then often it's because because I was like, do you have any idea in regards to your preferences yet and what you want? Nope, have no idea because I don't know what I don't know at this point. Got it. Right? And that is typical, right? And to be fair, they don't know because they haven't seen it. So we will have kids, either if they can get on campus to stuff locally, if it's not in budget, maybe to fly out. But a lot of colleges also do fly-in opportunities where they pay for you to go. right? They want kids to get on campus. So that is also an opportunity. But here's what's really great is then you start to gain some perspective, and then you take that and then you can apply it to other schools that you're looking at as you're building out that college list. So you're being really smart and strategic, and then you go, okay, now once I get in and I see the scholarship opportunities come senior year, I can really start to dive into seeing more of those schools that I want to sit in for full ride scholarship opportunities, or I want to go back and just double check and see, like, do I really like it now that I've seen all of these other schools for like a top pick, right? So that does happen quite a bit. And so we want to then, in this process, as we're leading into junior year, we start thinking more about applications. So understanding how colleges are evaluating applicants. So then how can we stand out in that process? Getting clear on the real cost of college so that you can actually start preparing financially. So we actually have a really solid way of being able to show families, how do you know how much this is going to cost you before you apply? So you are making smart choices at the get-go. And then you're creating a timeline. Well, we've created a timeline for you. You are following a timeline in terms of the applications, the essays, the letters of recommendation. Senior conversations are really hot right now, going through all of those goodies and things to get done. But it's really fabulous because it's like every time they're like, oh, yeah, nope, I'm good now. Great. You clarified all of the things, right? So we're walking through every step of that. Senior year, we're finalizing and submitting our college applications. We always aim for early action deadlines. Well, I shouldn't say always. For the most part, for most students, we are. And the reason why is because we are maximizing opportunities for admissions and scholarships at that point. There are always exceptions to every rule, but typically the earlier you get your applications in, one, less stress, which I have been telling every senior. I've been having conversation too. They're like, well, it's not till November 1st. Can't I? Like, no, if you are like, I'm literally looking at your application right now, and your activity session is a section is done. You've got a little bit left on your essay. So you do that and you get all the fluffy stuff done, you submit, because then you move on to the next thing, which is looking at scholarship opportunities and what else can I do to take advantage of bringing down that cost, right? So, or applying to an honors college, right? It's next steps then. And you don't have to deal with it anymore. And you just get to sit back and watch all of your friends struggle because they didn't do things early and they like to procrastinate. Anyway, so then we look at comparing award offers come senior year. So we're showing you, how do you look at what an award is? What is the actual free money? What do we have in terms of that grounds to appeal any scholarships that we've gotten? And then we have to navigate the legal forms and the bills and the borrowing and all of that. And then how do we transition into college, right? So how do we make sure that we're launching into that next phase successfully? So most families are going to spend five to $10,000 or more. I know people that pay more for all of that kind of support, but that's not what you will pay. So the estimated value of Tribe in the college game plan, that we're valuing this like if a family were paying separately for each grade level and all of the tools and coaching and like piecing that together to figure that out. So if we think about it like freshman year, we could value that at like 750. Sophomore year and building out that list and everything we were talking about, like 1,000. Junior year is more intense, so then we're building out that college list, and that's more like 1,500. Senior year, we're really diving into applications and awards and financial aid forms, so 1,750. And then we have all of the group calls and our Q&A and our coaches, so that's like 30 sessions of or more that we're doing over 4 years. So that's like a $1,200 value, plus all of the other resources and platforms that we give you access to is another 1,200. So it gets, I mean, when you try to piece it all together like that, it gets pretty pricey pretty fast. Um, but what we did inside, and then I should say, the masterclass. So for the fact that you are here, right, we have what we call insider bonuses, where you have insider pricing that's locked in for as long as you are a member of Tribe. And then you get to schedule your onboarding call with your coach so that you can fast track your plan and then set yourself up for success right from the start. So just to remember, right, like I started out not knowing anything. Okay. I have been doing this now for going on my 15th year. I was that first generation low income rural student who didn't have an idea what it was that she was doing. Wished I would have had a coach or a mentor to help me figure it out. So I didn't do it via trial and error. And my strategy was credit cards, student loans, and working. Right. And I know we don't want that for our students. But what I did have, right, was the grit and determination and a belief that I could do something better than where I started. So now I get to help families do this smarter, faster, and without all of those costly mistakes that I made in the process. So the total value of everything that you get inside of Tribe and the college game plan, the personalized timelines, the expert coaching, financial aid strategies, the grade by grade guidance comes to over 7,400. So if you tried to piece that all together. But I believe that college planning should be accessible and affordable for everybody and not just for those that can pay thousands for private coaching. So that's why our normal monthly rate is $97 a month, which is already a fraction of the cost of hiring a private consultant. But for right now, for a limited time, we do have it at an even steeper discount so that you can join for just $77 a month. So that means that you can get started today without waiting another year and making some costly mistakes. So how does that work? And I'm just going to put this in here for you guys so that you guys have it in the chat. But the link is in there. So we have it for like I think it's a 5-day window for registration in regards to Tribe. And when you complete your registration, then you will get an email confirmation where you're going to find a short form that you complete so that we can set up your account for you. And then once we receive your form, our team will create your College Planner Pro portal and give you access to your roadmap, your tools, and your coaching schedule. So then once you get that set up, then and fill that form out, the sooner we can get you signed up. So once you get into your portal, you're going to get access to the timeline, the tools, the to-dos, all of the financial aid planning resources based on your student's graduation year. And then you get to schedule your onboarding call with one of our fabulous coaches. And that is where at that session, you're going to get a clear outline in regards to the colleges that are going to be a great fit for your student, and then be able to have a clear idea of what scholarship opportunities are going to be available. So then when we look at the calendar, which I was showing you earlier, we have a live call each month based on your student's graduation year. And so we are with you every step of the way. So why you signed up for this training was because you wanted to give your student that best possible future without unnecessary stress or debt. And because deep down, you know that this process is too important to wing it. So if you're ready for a clear plan and expert guidance, then Tribe could be a fabulous option for you. And typically, what we see people feeling is that I'm worried that it's too late for us to start. I have a lot of seniors that come in at this point in the process where they just don't know that it even makes sense. And that's totally understandable. But when it comes to the whole admissions financial aid process, I would say that if we, only have one school in mind, maybe that is true. But if we're still looking at a variety of school options and we want to maximize our opportunities, then that's not. And so when we're thinking about, is that going to save us any money? Most families are going to miss out on thousands of opportunity or thousands of dollars in like merit aid when we don't pick schools where we are a good target fit. So going back to, we want schools to be a good admissions financial aid fit the whole process, right? So this, and I would say the biggest one that I tend to hear from people is, right, like I'm already overwhelmed, and I just can't handle one more thing in regards to this. And the system was built, the whole point of Tribe is to simplify and then guide you step by step so that you don't have to guess. You have a framework and you know exactly what you need to do, what call to come to, what step and action to take, so that then you have a clear path, so that then you can focus on what really matters, which is spending quality time with your kid and enjoying high school in those years. So, um, I will. Oh, so this is just like the discount that we have, you'll see on the page. I'm going to put the recording on that page for the link that I put in the chat. So that was what I was saying at the very beginning. The recording is going to be on that page. It's also going to get emailed out so that everybody has it. But the discount expires in 5 days at midnight. So that is where we're doing the $77 plus fast tracking you and getting scheduled with one of our coaches, which I think I saw some questions in there about that I will address. But it's where after that, it's just going to go back to our regular $97 a month pricing in terms of that program. So, for our coaches, we have a lot of really fabulous people on our team. So we've got people who are working for admissions at USC at the graduate school. We have some coaches that have done some nonprofit work in college coaching, others who have been educational consultants for 15 years. And so we've got a good spread, some that are high school guidance counselors that are wanting to coach more students in a more holistic way, and so are on our team. So we let families kind of pick their coach based on their availability and who they connect with. So you can see the bios of the coaches that we have available and then pick them accordingly. Yeah. So I am happy. I know that there's been a lot of stuff going on in the chat. And if there were some questions in here that we wanted to make sure that we answered from the very beginning that I didn't get to, I would be happy to answer those. Um, Yes, so Tribe is a monthly membership. So based on your student's graduation year, you would sign up and you would get locked in at the $77 a month rate for the time that you're with us, whether you're a freshman or a senior. That would be what it would look like. Is there a minimum number of months that you sign up for? No. So it's intended to walk you through the entire process. So, I will say that based on like that timeline of everything that we were looking at before, um, we're walking through, as you saw, all of those pieces based on our graduation year. And so one thing builds on top of the other as time goes on in terms of the process. So in an ideal world, we would say families would stay with us through senior year, which would be through June of senior year is when we're doing our last session. Families still get access to the portal over summer as we're gathering final college data. But other than that, no. We have a specific question that might pertain to other scholarships. We're looking to apply to the Gates scholarship and the deadline is in 2 weeks. It also requires the FAFSA to be filled out, but the 26-27, we have a senior, the form's not available for October. Yes, so are we supposed to fill out the FAFSA for the scholarship even though we're not graduating until 26, or can we apply for the Gates scholarship until next year? Very confused. That is a great question. I don't know the details of that scholarship off of the top of my head, but is something that I would be happy to investigate a little bit further. It's something that I would imagine if they're requiring a FAFSA. Um, I mean, you can't, like literally, you can't file. And so I'm wondering if it's like the submit the scholarship application itself, and then when FAFSA is available and open, that then you could submit that as supplementary materials. But I would say Kevin could be something to reach out to me via email in order to check, and I could look into that because I'm curious as well. Do you help transfer students who have gone to a 2-year college? Yeah, the process is a little bit different than obviously what it is that we saw tonight looking at that. But yes, we do work with transfer students who are transferring to 4-year schools. Usually that is going to be something that's going to be less tribe related and more like a one-on-one consultation. And then depending on what they need help and support in, either guidance on like a college list or just like what that process looks like. So it might be that one might be a little bit different. Yeah. Advice on where to look for outside scholarships or specific websites. Typically, we have our families use Imagine scholarships. We get a discount on that platform. And we really love them for the fact that they have a searchable platform so you can build a profile and then be able to search by scholarships based on your interest, your major, etc. But then also, they don't sell your information like College Board and some of the other places do. So we really do appreciate that. Yeah. Um, haven't have you had reliable experiences using ChatGPT on questions like this? Um, did you try asking ChatGPT or Oh, yeah. And I mean, totally fair, right? Too, like ChatGPT is super helpful for scholarship searches as well. I've had people that, are willing to do, parents that are willing to do that work to help support students, where they will help curate a list and then just like double check. And then you can kind of create a scholarship tracker to say which ones are going to be the most beneficial to apply for, right? Like you're creating its own profile. So if you're good at prompting, then for sure that's also 100% an option. Just double checking like what things look for. Um, Calvin, yes. Used my experience when I was a junior in high school, and it was extremely helpful during the entire process. And we found a great college fit for my daughter and our budget. And I joined today because my son is a sophomore in high school and wanted to see what's new and intend to work with Crystal again. Thanks, Calvin. Appreciate that. Yeah. Um, do you charge for 12 months per year or only during the school year? So the TRI program is year round. So we do sessions year round. It is not based on a academic calendar in that sense. From the calls that you saw earlier, that's where we're aiming towards what we, based on the timeline of the process, setting families up for success. And that is all year. Yeah. What is the recommended timeline for PSAT or SAT? So for the most part, we're having students figure out the SAT or ACT, which one they have an aptitude for, as they're wrapping up sophomore year. So I have a lot of students over summer who have done a diagnostic of both the SAT and ACT to see which one they were strongest at. And then from there, deciding which one made sense. So now we're going to study and then get registered and officially take the SAT or ACT in fall/winter of junior year, and then again in spring or early summer, depending on the student. PSAT automatically happens for, at some schools, sophomores and juniors in October. And I've had some that are doing like things now in the spring. And so it really is more a matter of math at this point. So our concierge call that we have coming up in September, what we're doing is diving into the nuances of SAT and ACT, and the timing and process of that, because if kids haven't had Algebra 2 yet, that sometimes can change the timing of when we suggest that they take the exams. Um, so was that Imagine? So Imagine Scholarships is the platform that we use for outside scholarship searches. And you will actually see that too on the link that I gave you. It is one of the options that you can add to the Tribe program to be able to have access to that as well. And are they required for SAT and ACT? So what's really challenging is since COVID and everything going test optional, you are going to find that that there's kind of a mixed bag. And they created a new category where schools are now putting test recommended rather than test required or test optional. So this is something that often is going to, for schools I've seen more like in the South, be tied to admissions and be required. And some of the elite institutions are going back to requiring it. And then others are doing it more as it's tied to scholarships. So University of Alabama is always a really great example. It's a baseline GPA they want, which I think is like a 3.5 now or higher. And then the higher your test score, the more scholarship they give you. So they are buying test scores at that point in time. So it's never just usually admissions, it's also going to be the scholarship consideration. So will this recording be available after the webinar? Yes, it will be. It will get sent out. The website that I recommended for outside scholarship searches is Imagine Scholarships. Will joining Tribe help with essays? Yes, so we do a session and we have resources available for those students that want to do it on their own and they have like an English teacher or something or somebody else who's already helping them. You will see that there is an option to add one-on-one essay support, like if you want somebody to review and edit and do all of those things and help specifically with topic generation. We do have essay specialists that can also help with that level of detail. But we do walk students through how they need to be thinking about their essays and how best to prepare in our concierge calls in June of junior year as they start thinking about that. Yeah. If you have an incoming junior, it's about $2K to cover 77 a month and have your senior go off to a great school where perhaps you are saving 4 to 5 figures per year. So yeah, worth it. Thanks, Susie. What is the cancellation policy? So, I mean, I had a family reach out to me today and she was like, my daughter adamantly refuses to work through the process and is going to only look at applying to WSU. And so, you know, she was in for a couple of months and then we took her out. And I was like, well, I totally understand. And if things change, feel free to reach out. So it's one where we encourage families to stay in and come to the calls, work the process, do the things. But if we don't, then we're just not going to get the value out of doing it. Yeah. I get the value of this role, but if any other parents are already on a fixed budget and need to rely on a collective approach, community aid style, okay, not sure what that is for. What is the process for joining Tribe with 2 kids in high school, freshman and junior? So you would just want to sign them up each independently. So you would use that link twice in order to make that work. So we would be setting up 2 separate profiles for them so that they would have what they need to do based on a freshman and based on a junior and working through that process. Can we sign up for September to November? I'm not sure what graduation year you are. You could. I don't think that you would get the most out of the process if you did it that way. So if we are a senior and saying, yeah, that just wanting to do like application time, typically I will, if you're just saying, I just want like application support, I have a smaller program actually than the Tribe program that would probably be more in line with what you would want. but would be worth a conversation. So feel free to send me an email, and I can get you over that information. But for the most part, Tribe is intended to take us through application process, right? If we're a senior, into financial aid form process, into understanding our award offers and all of the stuff through senior year, and outside scholarships and all of that, right? So the best value is not doing Tribe that way. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for spending your evening with me. I will get this recording out to you and get it posted. Feel free to reach out when you get that follow-up email if you have any questions. And have a fabulous evening.